and then transmission to humans by ingestion of the water containing the plankton, the bacteria, and cholera ensuing. Cholera is actually a global problem. The darker the color, the more intense the epidemics that have occurred. You will note that Peru had a very severe epidemic that broke out for the first time in nearly 100 years in 1991-92. And as it turned out, we're going to have technical problems as we did this morning. As it turned out, the relationship to El Nino was very dramatic. That is, we were able to demonstrate that the warming of the sea surface off the coast of South America ended up with the problems of both not having available safe water and at the same time having enhanced numbers of the bacteria due to the warming of the sea surface. Now, if that hadn't gone off, you would have seen the slide, the globe rotate continuously to bring us to Bangladesh in India, where I've done most of the research over the last 30 or 40 years. And we were able to show very clearly in our studies in Bangladesh that the association with plankton was very important. The problems really are, as we hear over and over again, access to safe drinking water. Let me take my slides here. Rather than wait for the slides, let me just continue because the time is short. Very good. Thank you. So let me just point out that, again, children are the most common victims of cholera, and the child death rate that I've already shown you, of course, is an end result. Another point I'd like to make is that with cholera, in a severe case with the toxin-producing bacterium being the infectious agent, an individual can lose as many as 18 liters of fluid in a given day. And that, of course, leads to systemic shock and death if the water is not provided either through intravenous transmission or through what fortunately has been developed over the last 10 or 15 years, oral rehydration therapy. Now, I'm going to discuss the environmental factors related to the cholera epidemics. These are essentially the sea surface temperature, sea surface height, and also chlorophyll, which we can measure by satellite imagery. We've been able to use the high-frequency satellite sensors, and particularly the CWIF satellite sensor, which allows us to measure sea surface temperature, sea surface height, and chlorophyll. Hopefully, we'll be able to measure salinity in the new satellite that's going up. Interestingly, we predicted that there should be correlation with the outbreaks in Bangladesh, and we were able to show through the prediction that with first warming of the sea surface, the increased sunlight, the photosynthetic phytoplankton, 2 or 3 weeks later, the bloom of the zooplankton, and then we predicted 2 or 3 weeks after that, there would be the epidemics that occur routinely year after year in Bangladesh. And sure enough, we were able to correlate using the satellite data the predicted 4 to 6 week delay from the warming of the sea surface till the outbreaks of cholera. So climate plays a very significant role. Pity you can't see the slides. The data are pretty good. We've been able to do the correlations for Calcutta, for Bangladesh, Madla, Bangladesh, and thank you. This is not advancing. Anyway, we were able to show the predictions and to create a model that allows us to calculate, for example, for a milligram per cubic meter increase in chlorophyll for Calcutta, we can predict a 33% increase in the number of cholera cases. And for a millimeter per day increase in rainfall, we can predict about a 7% increase in the number of cholera cases. And the same is for Matlab, Bangladesh. For a milligram per cubic meter increase chlorophyll, we get roughly a third increase in the number of cholera cases. So this correlation is statistically highly significant, and this capacity then to predict when, where, and how intense the cholera epidemics will be is possible. And we're now working on an advanced model that will allow us to predict even earlier, maybe 6 months earlier, for conditions as they move from the south of India up into the Bay of Bengal, the water masses, to be able to predict the intensity and the timing of the cholera epidemics. And these are the data that show with the model fit, the A represents that is for Matlab, B is for Calcutta, C is for Ghana, Africa, and then D is Lima, Peru. The Purdue data are more scanty. They aren't as complete from the records, but nevertheless the pattern is still quite similar. So for these several continents, applying the model and the measurements, satellite measurements, we're able to make these predictions. We're currently looking at the data for Senegal. As it turns out, Senegal is undergoing a very severe cholera epidemic that began about 2005. What is difficult about this particular epidemic is, as you see in red, those are the deaths. Blue are the numbers of cases. About a 20% mortality rate, and cholera is usually 2 to 5%. It turns out molecular genetic reasons for this. It turns out that the strain that seems to be running through Senegal has a double dose, double genetic, 2 genes, a double gene for the cholera toxin production. But more than that, there are also anomalies that have been occurring. As you can see from the upper left, the sea surface temperature off the coast of Senegal has been warming, and you can see the anomalies in the sea surface height in the lower left. And this allows us then to apply the model, and we're going back, we're able to correlate these climate relationships to the disease. And we're in the process now of doing the earlier prediction, as I said earlier, for cholera in India and Bangladesh. Just to sum up, the bacterium is associated with the copepod, the little critter with the axilla, and that critter is fed upon by invertebrates like oysters, shellfish, and with poor sanitation, there is, of course, the person-to-person transmission, but the source is really from the environment. So this very close interaction of environment, human health, climate is very, very important, especially for waterborne diseases. This similar pattern, I believe, can be probably provided for a number of waterborne diseases, including parasites like Giardia and Cryptosporidium. Now, in our studies, we wanted to provide some opportunity to improve the health of the women in Bangladesh and India who live in for their families who live in the very rural parts of the country where there is no possibility of a distributed, safe, filtered, chlorinated drinking water, nor is there even a possibility of having some of the more technical chlorinating units. Because our hypothesis was that the copepods carry the bacteria, we then drew from that the conclusion that if we could remove the plankton, we could reduce cholera. And so with a series of tests done in the laboratory and published, we showed that we could remove 99% of the cholera bacteria in both natural and spiked waters tested in the laboratory by simply filtering through sari cloth. We tested other material, Chinese poplin, men's t-shirt material, but we wanted something that absolutely the most destitute of the poor would have available and could use.